Thanks for having me, everyone. Forgive me if I falter. I've had a day of going through this presentation at the Mines and Money Conference that I know some of you are aware of. And forgive me if we slip off straight after this presentation because we have another function to attend. But what I'm going to do is going to leave plenty of time for questions. I'll go through this pretty quickly and then I'm going to pretty much hand over to you guys. Let me start, before we flick through the slides. We're a little bit odd in our sector. We are a mineral exploration company. But for better or worse, we have a model that evolved out of one drunken evening about 15 years ago in Bogota, in which we focus most of our efforts on in post-conflict environments, obviously prospective post-conflict environments. And so we've done this for about 15 years, which has taken us to places like the Balkans, so Bosnia, Kosovo, Georgia, the Caucasus, including Georgia, and more recently Southeast Turkey, which was going fine until Erdogan started bombing the Peshmerga in Iraq, and we had to leave. We moved into an environment that we'd known before many years ago, in fact since the early 2000s, which was Colombia. And I'll focus much of the presentation on Colombia, although we also work in Nicaragua. And so we're different in terms of, if you're looking at your profile, your investment portfolio, I suspect there's not many like us on that list. So forgive me the differences and bear with us as I try to walk you through, I think, a fairly transparent presentation of the potential risks and rewards of our sector, and then what we do particularly in our sector. So at the moment, our main focus, as I alluded to, is Latin America, and in Colombia here, where we have a large land package. We're basically into the land package strategy. So we claim up large areas of highly prospective ground in environments which we think we can manage the risk, and generally low prospectivity risk and higher geopolitical risk, I suppose. So in Colombia, which I'm going to talk mostly about, we have a land package along the belt of the Andean mountain range, which many of you will be familiar with, which is highly prospective because it's been underexplored, and it's been underexplored because it's been the home of a fairly heavy presence of FARC guerrillas, which, as you probably are aware, was the largest armed revolutionary force in Colombia up until the peace process in November of last year. In Nicaragua, which is less ominous, we are the largest exploration license holder, and we have a joint venture there with a gold-producing company, which is also Colombia's largest gold producer, so a bit of a synergy between those two countries. And I'm not really going to touch on Peru. That was a bit of an itch that we had to scratch, but some areas that we've been working on in Peru that are relatively interesting, but we're not going to talk about that today. Okay, so Colombia. So we are down in Colombia, we're right down here in what's called Nariño province, and which, as you can see, is right on the border of Ecuador. Now, I'm aware that some of you in the audience don't really follow our sector, and some of you who do, but if you do, you're probably aware of the Cascabel discovery, which is one of the most exciting discoveries, I think, of last year and this year. And that's about 30-odd kilometers away from the Ecuador border. And what I've shown here, while I'm talking about Ecuador here, is, sorry, the Colombia border, I've shown you the license situation in that this is a highly prospective region that has been claimed up by various, including BHP Billiton and other companies, up to the border with Colombia. You hop across that border and everything in blue, so filled blue and open blue squares, is Royal Road Minerals. That's our license and license application package. And on here, I've mapped out some of the major occurrences. These are well known, so a series of gold occurrences here on the western side, on the eastern side, and then some copper occurrences which are very similar to Cascabel, which we believe continue in a belt all the way up into Colombia and into our area here. And then, just as an indication of what's going on, these are alluvial. So this is gold that's eroded from this mountain range, this very high mountain range, or 3,000 meters at least, of gold mineralization. So this has always been a prospective region, and in our industry, it's very well recognized as a prospective region. It's not really been the issue. The issue in this area has been that it has been governed by more or less a paralegal system for around about 50 years during this internal conflict that Colombia has gone through with the FARC guerrilla. And particularly, there's a road here that leads to Tumaco, which is a major port here on the board, on the seaboard here. This southern area here is, we know, highly prospective, and we know completely underexplored because it was almost entirely occupied by the FARC, who were controlling the coca business and then presumably moving product up down the road and out of Tumaco. So highly prospective and yet highly troubled. However, fortunately, in November of last year, almost a year ago to the day, a peace process was signed, which was 14 years in the making between the Colombian government and the FARC guerrilla. I'll skip through that slide. That's a peace process that has just been protected in law for the next 12 years under constitutional law. So that's not the peace process, sorry, the peace agreement. So it's in place. It cannot really, although it hasn't stopped anybody, it shouldn't really be kicked around like a political football because it cannot be changed. And it's one that's drawn a lot of international attention, and particularly from our embassy, from the British embassy, who are very committed, for whatever reason, I blame it on Brexit, to Colombia, to the extent where they have what's called a prosperity fund of £25 million to invest in, this is an aside, it's got nothing to do with us, but £25 million to invest in post-conflict initiatives. It has around about £4.2 billion in export credit available for businesses investing in Colombia. And so it is the second largest embassy in the Americas. So we are quite committed to Colombia. And what the embassy has helped us do is execute an agreement with an organization called ECOMUN. ECOMUN is an organization that was established in May this year under presidential decree. It's there as an instrument to reintegrate ex-FARC combatants. It has a board comprised of 2 government officials and 2 ex-FARC commanders. And we've signed a deal. It's the very first of its kind in post-conflict Colombia. So we're quite proud of that fact in itself. It's a deal that requires us, this is not new to us, but requires us, once again, to follow what's called IFC, so International Finance Corporation Performance Standards, which are World Bank performance standards, to operate to the expectations of the Equator Principles, which are principles that major lenders sign up to, and you must prove that you have met those expectations, otherwise they will not lend to construct mines. So it has a very strong focus on social and environmental implications of our work, and obviously in terms of reintegration of ex-combatants. Now, the deal on their side is that we provide them with a 1% net smelter royalty directly to ECOMUN, which must, under the terms of the agreement and under the terms of the resolution under which that body was established, be invested in community projects, so around our operations. And we provide a 1% royalty directly to communities to be managed by them on community projects. We're also, you probably won't be surprised that Colombia produces at the moment about 2 million ounces a year of gold completely illegally, and a lot of that using mercury. In some parts of Colombia, mercury is actually an aerosol, highly detrimental, of course. I'm sure you're all aware of that. Part of our program in Nariño is to formalize illegal miners, not run them off. educate them on, if we can, develop centralizing processing systems. This is an aside to our business is to look for very large ore deposits, but this is something we're going to do as an aside. And clean up the mercury system and the illegal mining disease that's affecting this particular region. So this is an agreement that has given us, we believe, or will assist us at least, obtaining a social license and developing a sustainable coexistence strategy in an area that where the prospectivity is not really the question. We know it's highly prospective. This is very early stage stuff, but we've managed to get a foothold in what I believe at least is the last remaining most prospective copper and gold belt in the entire Andean region. I think I've probably gone through this, but in terms of what our responsibilities under the arrangement and ECOMUN's responsibilities, and this is the feedback loop. We have a management committee which comprises 2 from Royal Road, 2 from ECOMUN, and 1 independent yet to be nominated by the British Embassy. And that committee's principal role is to make sure we behave ourselves on either sides of that equation, but then also to ensure that those royalties or the cash derived from those royalties or paid as for the purchase of those royalties is used properly in terms of community programs. We're also engaging, obviously, the Agencia Nacional de Minería, various NGOs, and the British Embassy. Right, so our principal job once we've done that is to explore that entire 450,000 hectares of pristine, highly prospective exploration ground. We've been there for 2 years now already, so we're aware of some of the known occurrences. We're aware that we will be able to walk up to targets and develop an inventory of porphyry copper gold, if you know what that means, and high-grade gold projects very early on. But we're also very keen on establishing a very broad framework over that entire 450,000 hectares by flying geophysics. So we'll be doing that quite early in 2018. Okay, Nicaragua, very quickly, as I said, we are the largest license holder in Nicaragua. We own, by virtue of an arrangement, we did a 50-50 deal with HEMCO, which is one of producing gold, which is one of the producers in Nicaragua. It has a gold mine up here in the Golden Triangle. We are the largest exploration license holder in Nicaragua. An interesting country. It's obviously been through conflict as well, but many years ago with the Sandinista-Contra conflict. And I'm not going to talk too much about this because it's very early days, other than the fact that the drills start turning at this project called Piedra, Iman later in the week. And this is a project that's more known for copper and gold. It was a project that was originally drilled by a company called Miranda back in 1974. Those of you familiar with Central American history will know that that was the year that the Sandinista conflict really kicked off. So they had to leave country relatively quickly. So we're going back. We'll be doing the first drilling since that 1974 drilling, which, as you can see, some of the numbers are down here, and they'll be in the presentation that gets emailed to you, return some pretty interesting intersections. We also have, virtual other projects, a large porphyry copper gold project that we'll be drilling with our partners in 2018. And this is way too technical. And 200,000 kilometers of what's known as a Golden Triangle in northeastern Nicaragua, which will also be flying with geophysics. So that's a map of that particular area. So very, very early days and a large land package also in Nicaragua. So about us, we've done a lot of this before. So the job is to make discoveries. These are some of the ones that we can pin our name to. The one most recently that I was involved in, I was the CEO and founder of and the discoverer of Amulsar, which is a project which is now going into construction in Armenia. That's 5 million ounces of gold. We're very strongly institutionally held. By that I mean around about 60-65% of the stock sits in firm institutional hands. The challenge for us is to get the retail market, so that's you guys, interested in the remaining 35 or so percent. And buying on the market. And so we realized that probably this might be a little bit too early and difficult for most retail people to understand. You're waiting for numbers. We are drilling at the end of, we'll start drilling next week. That program should finish around about the 20th of December. So we'll have some numbers to show the market. But at least you've heard the story and you've heard it fairly early. In terms of who we are, and I'm going to open this up to questions very quickly now. I'm not going to bore you with these details, but there's three people I'm very proud of here, which are our Colombian VPs. One of them who's sitting right here is Jenny, who's our responsible development vice president. You can see their backgrounds and their experience. And our board. I will point out one of our directors because he was fundamental in us making this landmark agreement with the ex-guerrilla, is Daniel de Navarez. He happens to be the neighbor, I encourage you to Google these people, happens to be the neighbor of a guy called Alvaro Leiva, who was fundamental in the Colombian peace process. He was the chief negotiator on the FARC side, so he worked on that for 14 years. And it was really those two guys, Daniel and Alvaro, who of the ex-guerrilla, and of course our team brought in the British Embassy support to the extent where we got an agreement done, which we all think is quite unique.